are bleeding. It's a little hard for me to do the record.
Well, and welcome to the episode. I am joined by Matt today. Yes, we did start. Welcome to the episode. I would like to apologize first off for the quality. We were not able to get this one worked out as well. This is a recorded conversation across the phone instead of two people sitting across from each other like we usually do these. We're going to try and get better with the ones that come after this. But this is to introduce Matt, and that's the most important part of today. So why don't you do that today, Matt?
Oh, okay, now I talk.
Yes, now you can
talk. Hi, I'm Matt Gonzalez. I'm a character artist for Collision, and I'm happy to be with you, Andrew. This is dope.
Wait, I didn't know we were together like that. We weren't supposed to.
I mean, we are. Oh, you. Sorry. I mean, I thought just this would be a good time as any for everybody to know.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if we're gonna have to tell them at some point, we might as well tell them now, right? That does make sense.
Yeah, we are together.
Okay, yeah. So when I say my wife, I actually mean my husband. It's Matt.
You're still growing past it. It's okay. It's a growing process.
Yeah, I'm still growing as an individual. I have to come to some personal understandings before I'm comfortable being fully out. But apparently, he's outing me now.
I will.
On a serious note, yes, Matt is a character designer here at Collision. He's in charge of the Knights and the Samurai, which I'm sure keeps him up very late at night, pulling his hair out sometimes.
It does. Yes, it's okay. I just have hair in my beard, so it's a little harder for me to pull my hair out.
It's okay. It's okay. If it makes you feel any better, I also pull the hairs out of my beard when I'm stressed.
Cool.
There's actually a small bald spot right now that I have to shape my beard around because I was picking at my face and I was just scratching while I was thinking about something really heavily, and it turns out that really heavy thinking lasts 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, and you don't realize it's that much time has passed, and you're like, "Oh, I hurt myself." That's like when I bite my lip. That's what I do when I draw sometimes.
Yeah, I used to do that with. I stick out my tongue when I'm writing. I just barely with that little. I'm thinking. I'm trying to nose the needle properly. And because of that, I end up with a dry tongue sometimes. If that makes any sense.
That's fun.
So why did you choose the Knights and the Samurai when you were hired?
That is a good question.
That is, yes, that is indeed a question.
Okay, so it's funny because I will absolutely agree that I do pull my hair out sometimes. Absolutely. But I've always loved Knights and Samurai specifically because they have this kind of they're both very grounded in reality as characters, but there's also something I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce this. Enigmatic around them. There's something. Yeah, I think I pronounced that correctly. There's something that gives them this enigma kind of air, this kind of mysterious air about them, where you look at things like Sekiro or Elden Ring. What?
Oh my God, are we gonna go on another rant about Elden Ring?
I will. Yes.
Talk about Elden Ring for 20 minutes on the last podcast.
We won't. It's okay. We're not gonna do that. I figured that might happen. So, but I really love studying both of those because they both have this air of groundedness. There's a thorough lore to it. There's a lot of thought behind the designs and the intricacies, and there's a lot of backstories behind both of them. They're both prolific in history. Everyone knows what a knight looks like. Everyone knows what a samurai looks like, and finding that kind of thing, that kind of style, and putting a lot of lore into the designs and tatters or certain earrings or accessories that can tell you something about the character without you needing to interact with them or to even see them talk to somebody else, and all is what makes my job really fun. So besides wanting to kill myself while finding the shine on the knight armor, um, I really really love it. Like both of those characters, I really really enjoy designing.
King Arthur is probably like he looks so unique in the sense that you can't identify where he's from.
Yes.
Which is more or less what I was looking for, because you and I have discussed like his backstory and how he's actually a character that I wrote years and years ago, that I want to finish one day. But this is after that story anyway, so it doesn't matter. So he has a bunch of information in my head, a bunch of backstory in my head. But those areas don't really have a design in my head. So that was perfect, because like the gold crown type thing that he's wearing looks so ancient while also being perfectly medieval, if that makes sense.
Yes, exactly. That was the goal, was to give it like a an intricacy. I looked a lot at the design work from Sarah Gowan in The Green Knight, like the movie that just came out, The Green Knight. That had really like such amazing work. Oh my god, I can't remember the costume design name. But I loved how they had exactly. It has this. That's what I was aiming for. This kind of ancient but very regal look. That spoke a lot, but also that spoke a lot and had a lot of pop, but was also seemed very subtle. Like it appeared very subtle on the head, but you also couldn't help but notice it.
Yeah, I felt that when I saw the image. It was almost like trying to figure out where he was from while also knowing that technically he's from nowhere.
Exactly.
And then when you're with your Onimusha design, you got pretty much the, for those who don't know what Onimusha means, I don't speak Japanese. I asked this to be translated by someone who does. So if they're wrong, I'm sorry. Onimusha means legendary female warrior. Or I'm sorry, it just means female warrior. And then our legendary Onimusha is just a legendary female warrior. And since the podcast is only for the crazy fans anyways, the Onimusha is a single character. All of the female samurai that you see in the first release of the game is one character, and her name is unknown to even us. And originally, the samurai were paired with the kitsune, but you asked to do both, which led me to redesign the entire thing, which I'm perfectly fine with, in case I haven't already mentioned.
which I've actually brought you on this podcast to tell you how furious I am about it.
Yeah. No, I kind of expected to have this happen when I was designing the game from a play perspective, from a game design perspective. I was willing to shelve anything that I'd created at that point and create something brand new, because the making of the cards is what I'm good at. That's what I do really well, in my opinion. Is sit down, think, okay, I have a creature that we'll use the slimes as an example. Let's say I have slimes and I want to make an entire deck around the concept of a slime. But what is a slime in video games? It's just like this gooey
ball.
This gooey ball. And what do gooey balls do? Well, I mean, I've seen the blob, so I would assume that they would probably go up to something and then eat it and then take on properties of it. That's what I would do. But then I was like, well, that's not what slimes do in video games. So I made an entirely different creature that did that, called the changeling, and that's a fairy thing. But when it came to doing the same idea with the knights, since they were separated at first, they didn't have anything to do with each other, and I didn't want them to exist within the same universe, because the samurai comes from a world like ours, except feudal Japan never ended. And the knights come from a world like ours, except the Renaissance never came. So technology improved, but there was no huge resurgence of technology caused in a short period of time that led to the advancement of humanity across the board. Instead, science evolved slowly over time across the world while being separated. Because advancement can be made individually, but it's going to be much slower.
Right.
So, since those two worlds don't really work together, and I didn't want to have to write a thing where, oh, okay, well, she actually lives on an island that is kind of big, so she thinks it's her whole planet, because that would imply that her people, or if I did the same thing to the knights, they aren't very intelligent.
Right.
They wouldn't be able to calculate the size of the Earth based on the movement of the sun. Blah 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 blah. There are a bunch of different ways to figure out how big the planet is if you're smart enough. And I didn't want to do that because I wanted to imply that they had a different kind of knowledge. To me, if you have magic involved, science becomes less useful because the majority of science is how do I solve this problem or how do I create this new problem that I want to solve.
Right.
And magic can circumvent a huge chunk of that. So in a world where the knights are from and where the samurai are from, that kind of makes sense. So instead, what I did,
Oh God, he died.
I did die. Yeah, I got shot. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that. Anyways.
Oh my God.
2 days later,
Moving right along.
Small-time game developer found in his. Oh, never mind.
Undig the whole Andrew.
Exactly. Dig the hole deeper, actually. What I think the best solution was that I went with was to just make them connect at the pinnacle. So the pinnacle of the samurai is the Onimusha, and the pinnacle of the knights is King Arthur. So backstory of King Arthur now has him marrying and fathering a child with the legendary Onimusha. So the most powerful woman in the most powerful woman in Collision married one of the most powerful men in Collision and made the most powerful woman in Collision, or the most powerful girl, I guess she's a little kid. And when I came up with that, I realized there's a whole other slew of different things that you could do when it comes to this next generation of samurai, giving you more freedom in the future.
Right. So let's say from what's interesting is that from there, the idea that kind of bases in now is spreading out and combining like elements of both to kind of but like distinctually. So like
yes.
There will be there's going to be like different designs for the caves but like just enough so that you can see the tinge of each of their cultures kind of moving around each other.
No, I definitely think that's the way I want to go. To compare us to another card game, do you play? I don't think you play Magic, but just in case, do you play Magic?
I've seen the word Magic the Gathering before and have gathered that it is a card game.
Fair enough. Don't worry.
That is the most I know.
In Magic,
besides studying that for studying all the art for it now.
Magic has a color wheel, just like we have our 4 colors.
Right.
Except they have 5. And the Magic color wheel it's 6. It's 6. I'm done. The Magic color wheel represents the land that they come from. For instance, black represents swamp and death because that's where the creatures within Magic the Gathering gather their strength from, the land that they grew up in. Because the Earth, the planet itself, has magic. And you essentially just gather that magic to cast spells. So ours is a little different. So Collision itself provides magic to the world. But that's because a god said so. A deity was like, okay, well, if you take a step on Collision and you're fighting on Collision, you're immortal. You can't die. unless you get killed by like you get stabbed. Like you can't get sick, you can't die of hunger, you can't die of thirst. You still get really hungry, and your vitality is drained, and you become weaker from not eating and drinking, but you won't die. Um, and the reason I decided to do that is because I realized that it would be a lot simpler if I could just make someone immortal whenever I wanted to. And that's how this all lines up. So King Arthur's been on Collision fighting for centuries. And he's just doing his thing. Onimusha, on the other hand, she was teleported there within like the last 10 years, 30 years. I'm not sure exactly how long that timeline should be. But since she got there, she essentially has not stopped fighting. And one of the first people she came in contact with was a King Arthur with no army. So that's where you and I, where your other job comes into play, because you're also a writer and an editor for the team. What is King Arthur like without an army? What is King Arthur like when Excalibur no longer springs to his hand when he strikes?
Yeah. The idea of this, like, which I feel like I was kind of trying to implement into the design, was this kind of I don't know what it was about the legend, and also how the notes that you gave, that kind of made me feel like there would be a brutality, but also some kind of reserved nature about him.
Yeah. The way I think of it this way is, you're a Dragon Ball fan, right?
I am, of course.
Okay, I was just double checking again.
Oh yeah. I hate.
What would happen if Goku was raised by Gohan his entire life, but never hit his head?
Nothing great.
Nothing great, right? But what would happen if Grandpa Gohan never died, but Goku hit his head again?
I'd like to hope that it would reverse, right?
He'd be evil, right, theoretically. Well, Killing Joke is pretty good with this particular thing. What happens when you have one really shitty day?
Right, yeah.
Now, what happens if that first shitty day is the first of 200 years of shitty days?
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to go to Collision any more than Onimusha did. He was hunting dragons. And the dragons, for some reason, were able to make a fucking teleporter to a different reality. I mean, what do you do when you're a random dragon hunter? Well, I guess he's not really random, but what do you do when you're a dragon hunter and you come to this place and they open a door and you see a million other monsters just running around? Can you hear me?
Oh, wait. Oh, yes, I can. Okay, now I can.
Did you hear me a second ago?
No, what did you say? Go.
What do you do when you're like a hunter, a dragon hunter, and you go to a dragon den with your army and the dragons are killing you? That's your bad day. That's your Killing Joke. But then when you actually like get to the bottom of the dragons and you're like trying to fight your way out, there's a door. It's like in space. And there's hundreds, if not millions of monsters. I made a huge jump from hundreds to millions, but either way, millions of monsters just running around fighting. And there's an open doorway right in front of you.
Right.
He jumped in. It was like, oh, if I don't stop these guys, they're going to kill everyone on the planet.
Right.
He jumped in, and the dragons were like, oh, he's gone. Close the door.
It feels almost like, and what it reminds me a lot of how I guess like a touch of Berserk.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a Berserk fan, so one of the greatest manga of all time is definitely going to sneak in.
Anyone listening, you need to read it. It doesn't matter if it. Yeah. Please.
Well, I mean, I mean, not to mention the deities within our universe are sometimes what's the word, cosmic in scale, but they are deific. So they are definitely gods. They are omnipotent within their own realm. But outside of their own realm, it's like taking an infinity gauntlet into another universe. It's useless.
Right.
So that's basically what he's trying to do, is find a way back to his place. So he and Onimusha have the same goal, but they both come to the same conclusion at some point in their lives. I've been gone so long, the people that I remembered are dead.
I'm about to say, yeah.
So this is my new home, or I can go home and make a new home. And they meet each other because of happenstance. If you've read the Onimusha samurai backstory, you know that she washes up on the shore. The man that finds her is King Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
He has like a group of mercenary people that he introduces her to, and she can get to know and she can work with and that kind of stuff. And from that point forward, it's basically a choose your own adventure where every answer was accurate. Like, did she go and fight the otherworld people because she thought they were evil? Yeah. Did she fight for them? Also, yeah. Did she train King Arthur in her ways so that way he could become a more skilled swordsman? Absolutely. Did he train her? Of course. Just that kind of thing. And until she eventually, 20, 30 years down the line, has become a master of death, a master of combat. I can't remember. I can't remember where I heard this. It might actually be a description of Melina from Elden Ring. Back to that.
I still have to finish it.
So good, so good. Anyways, Melina essentially, I think, is described as every slash of her sword is another death.
Jeez.
And how, like, she says, I've never been bested in combat. That's Onimusha. She's never lost in combat. She's just unbelievably skilled. And it's not because she's a Mary Sue or anything. Like, she didn't start undefeated, but she earned that shit, especially considering where things do go, because she fights for and against everyone. So that way she can learn from them. And she's basically on this warpath. Yeah, I mean, well, that's designed in the cards.
It's true.
I want people to be able to notice that. But what's not designed in the cards, and this could be a little bit of a spoiler even for you, actually, is
cool. I'm down for it.
Who did she train on her way? And would they be considered samurai? If they follow her combat style, especially one that she makes for herself after mastering all the others, would she be training samurai or something even further than that? Or does her being a samurai evolve the term as she becomes more and more powerful and more skilled? And my opinion on it is that she's still a samurai. She's mastered all these other forms of combat, and she has perfected combat itself, and she calls that being a samurai. So anyone that she trains, therefore, would also become a samurai under her. And then there you go. Your next set of releases, you can make any creature a samurai. You want a dragon samurai? You put a samurai sword in that dragon's mouth, and you got yourself a deal.
Oh no, yeah. I can't say too much, but there are some things happening. There are definitely some ideas that are being batted around.
You've played Dark Souls, right?
Of course.
Sword wolf.
Wolf sword.
Wolf sword, indeed.
a sword holding a wolf, actually.
That would be amazing. There's something like that in Fallout New Vegas. There's a sword gun, or there's a wolf gun, or a dog gun. Instead of firing normal bullets, it barks.
That's amazing.
It's the best. I love that game.
Oh yeah, I just realized I haven't done the full rundown on myself. We might have skipped
Oh
that.
shit! Oh, we did skip that. We got into it.
we got.
So, why did you get into art to begin with?
We went down. We fell right down the lore hole.
Hey, that means that other people will, hopefully.
It's true. It's true. It's okay. I don't think we've said too much. What's good is that there are a lot more interesting ideas on the way because of what you guys know from this now.
Exactly. If you're hearing something, it means that there's like a million other things waiting.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't like revealing too much.
Not too much. Just enough.
Despite how much I reveal, I don't like revealing too much.
All right. Okay. So. Oh man. All right. Now I have to go way back. I started drawing when I was 4. And,
really?
Yeah. I've been. Oh my god. So just
how are your stick figure Gokus?
My stick figure I actually never. It's very funny. I never drew Goku.
Oh really? I used to draw stick figure Gokus fighting stick figure Vegetas all the time. It was the best.
I would draw Vegeta all the time. It's very funny. I liked Vegeta's design a lot. I liked Goku's design, but I really liked Vegeta's for some reason. There was something about the armor that I really liked.
Yeah. How did they make a character, the villain, more iconic looking than the main character? I mean, they usually
but it was so that so I drew him, but yeah. So when I started when I was 4, and then I never stopped drawing. There was maybe one time as I grew up where like I started kind of realizing how I loved it, and like I would make it to the point where I would be getting like taking my mom's post-it notes and making like little flip books and stuff, and like I would be essentially I would be storyboarding without realizing it. Like I would be writing scenes and putting like arrows in between the little drawings to like make little scenes play out. It was I didn't even realize what I was doing at the time, but I was storyboarding and animating and learning about composition all at the same time by accident. Just because I've always loved art. I've always loved art. And especially what was it? Naruto was really the first one that got me on that very, very hard. Was that kind of the visuals and the animation really hit me. So I liked that a lot. So I started reading that. I read through all of that, burned through it. And then I like anything I could get my hands on that was like drawing related or art related. I would get into and dig into and like, oh man, it's been a long journey. It's been a very long journey, surprisingly enough. Man, I'm only thinking back on it now. Of like, there was a time where I took a break a few years ago. We're just thinking, oh god, you are dying.
I'm just getting over it. Don't worry.
You're getting emotional.
I'm crying. I can't take
it's a very emotional story.
It's just so beautiful.
I worked hard.
No, genuinely, you're a great artist. So, just to get back to a serious note for a second. Please continue.
So that like what ended up launching me after that was that 1 year that I took, because for a year I just absorbed things. Like I just would watch things, absorb them, and I wouldn't draw, but I was just absorbing them. I didn't know why. I just knew I had to take a break. So for a full year I didn't draw. I just like watched cool things, experienced. I don't know, just did life for a little bit. You know what I mean? And then flash forward, I just started drawing again, and I knew I was supposed to start drawing again. I don't even know what it was either about that time that I just knew I had to start drawing again. So I started, and then I started working around Photoshop. I was horrible at it. Started sketching, started scanning things. There's a website that's my website started going up. That is under construction right now. Don't try and go there now.
Fair enough.
And then what else did I start doing? Oh, and then in college, I started trying to take art classes, and I couldn't do it. I don't even know why. Um, I've always been more self-taught, and anytime I started going into art classes, it felt like homework, and I never wanted the thing that I love to do to feel like that. Um, so I was just like, I went to all the art classes, but like, I always felt, do you know what I mean? Like, I always felt like I was like being forced to do it, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
We're like this just like, oh, well, get this in on time, draw this thing, but draw it on time. And I was
Yeah,
and once it becomes that kind of thing of like, um, a homeworky thing, it feels very different than doing it as a job like this,
yeah.
where if it's homework,
Homework
you're
is
just homework,
so much more annoying.
like it just like I said, then it just gives me anxiety, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm being forced to whatever this, so I guess I'll do it. So I immediately dropped out of that art class, did not like it, and went back to being self-taught. So I've been teaching myself art, um, ever since then. Because I tried to experiment with that, tried to learn what I could from a teacher, but I really did not learn enough than just like practicing. Like I have to do it myself. That's the thing.
No,
And now I realize like I've always needed to do that.
no, I completely get that. I had the same relationship with writing for pretty much all of high school. Um, I enjoyed creative writing, but the moment that I would have to sit down and like try and finish something that I was working on so somebody else could read it or finish it, I just felt
Yeah.
so obligated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
took
Yeah.
me a long time to understand that that feeling happens to a lot of people. And
Mm-hmm.
it is just a matter of understanding what that feeling is and how it applies to you specifically, and then finding your solution to that problem. But for a lot of
Exactly.
people, school is one of the most limiting factors because
Mm-hmm.
the box that it tries to lock you in, and I'm not an expert on psychology, so don't
Yeah. No.
don't quote me.
we are like as creatives, we're kind of just speaking from our particular thing. Your
Yeah,
solution
our
might vary from
particular
ours.
yeah, your solution might vary from ours. Forcing someone into a box when it comes to art is a very bad idea unless it's
Yeah.
designing a graphic.
Mm-hmm.
Because more often than not, whatever they're actually capable of will be limited by your rules. And the whole thing that's great about art is once you have an understanding of those rules, you're supposed to break them. That's
Mm-hmm.
what makes that's what makes modern art so interesting and beautiful, which I know a lot of people probably don't get modern art pieces. I'm not saying that I get modern art pieces, but the style of art that you quote unquote need may not be what you need. Um,
Right.
and a big chunk of that is forced on artists that you need to do this. It is forced on artists in school. And while that's super useful to understand, like, oh, this is how you do this. This is how you want to do this. Um, I don't know if it's necessarily the best solution
Mm-hmm.
because something in the middle seems to work best for every artist I've ever met, where they're basically told, I want you to draw this, and this is what I had in mind. But then they have the right to be like, okay, that sounds stupid,
Yeah.
or that doesn't sound like it'll work, or I can't make that work, but I can do this, which is pretty much what all of you did
Mm-hmm.
when I hired you. Because I basically told you I have this idea. Um, and it's a card game, blah blah blah. And all of your first questions were, do you have any references for the style that
Mm-hmm.
you want? And your guys' response to me saying, there, it's your style. Whatever style you want to do it. Um,
Which is the best thing we've ever heard in our lives as
yeah, which is the best
artists.
thing you've ever heard because you're developing a style of doing art. You can do the technical stuff that you need to do. Like if somebody wants this face drawn, you can draw a face, right? You
Yeah.
you can copy somebody else's style if you need to, but that's not what I want. I don't want someone to look at a Yu-Gi-Oh card and be like, oh, okay, so we're going to copy the Yu-Gi-Oh style, and then I make a game that looks like Yu-Gi-Oh. No, I
Right.
want Collision to feel like collision. And I mean the term collision, not even the idea of our company. I want it to feel like a collision is happening. I want it to feel like worlds are colliding.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to do that, and like I said, this is now we're definitely not saying that this is the solution to every artist problem. The solution for us was to just let that happen because
Mm-hmm.
you all have the viable skill that I could base the card game around your art style. Your character driven, smooth line, um, what's the best way? I was going to say intricacy, but it's slightly different than the intricacy. I'll just use intricacy. The intricacy of your clothing and like your character design and the personality that pops out because of that. You could design an archetype around that. You could also design an archetype around the environmental storytelling that Chris accomplishes so well.
Right.
His deep curves and his particular style of shading,
Right.
it goes perfectly well for horror. But he was a character. He was a cartoonist.
Yeah.
Like
That's why I think it's very funny.
Yeah, it's insane. When I first hired him, I was hiring him for the kitsune because I wanted to have like a chibi look, and I thought he could pull it off. But he was like, "I don't want to do that. That sounds boring." And I was like, "Okay, go ahead, man. What do you want to do?" He's like, "I want to do zombies." I was like, "Well,
go on.
I'll see you later. You come back with some zombie designs." So yeah, I think that any one of you guys could have served as the basis for what it looked like. But given that your King Arthur and your Onimusha look like they were drawn by the same person, but not at the same time, is exactly what I wanted. Because
I think
the flavor is different, but the scent is the same.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, of course. That's because that finding like especially finding like a whole of a character is all about like the as much as you know about them, it's as much as you're gonna get out of the design. So it was really cool, especially drawing Onimusha, which was my very first one. It was really fun drawing her because I had all these intricate things that I knew about her and about the character and about what she'd been through. That she looked hardened, but there was also like there was still like a softness to her design that I liked. But there was still this like this veteran look that I really wanted. That she'd seen a lot of fights. That she had scars on her.
She's kind of okay. I'm going to use the term trap, but not the traditional term trap. She's like a combat trap.
Yes.
So like if you see her out of combat and not in her armor, you'd be like, oh, she's kind of buff. She might work out. But you would, because of the number of scars that she doesn't have, because of how good she is, you'd almost be like, she's too supple, I guess is the word I would use. She's too supple to be a warrior, and then she chops your head off.
Exactly, and then that's why like I had her I really like the tense pose that I have her in because you can see all the muscle and the sprint like that she's kind of like about to spring, like that's the tension that she has. She has a lot more muscle than I think might give her away at first glance when she would not be in combat. Is that now you can see all of that in the forearms and in her legs. You can see that now because it appears, it ripples once she's in that kind of situation, which was the idea.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the design of Goku in Super versus the design of Goku versus Frieza. Like Goku is objectively stronger when he fights in Super, but he looks so much more menacing and intimidating when he's fighting Frieza because of how buff he is, how dramatic everything looks. The style of Super is easier on animation, and it actually makes it to where you almost underestimate Goku from an outsider perspective because you're like, oh, he's kind of thin, he's muscular, but like he doesn't work out that much.
That's what I mean. I
Yeah,
I could critique
same thing.
FIFA for the rest of my life. Are you kidding me?
Um,
Forever, I could critique Dragon Ball Super, but I won't. I won't do that today.
so could I. Don't worry. Yeah, I used to shit all over that show. It has hit or miss. It's very hit or miss.
But yeah. So when when you came to me with the idea, just generally the idea of the card game, I first of all I was very humbled because I very much appreciated the trust and the faith that you had in us, and in the other artists, and the faith that they had in you, and I could see that there was something we could really make awesome, um, because we were all coming into our own, but all very disciplined in what we wanted to do. And I could see that there was like a core here, in this team that really invigorated me and surprised me. And as we're like most of us are mid 20 somethings, uh, really kind of coming up and about to hit a lot of like the pinnacles of our abilities, and joining this team was really impactful because now we have this chance to kind of harden and hone what we already know about ourselves, which is the skill that we have to make something awesome.
Yes, yeah, that's more or less how I see it too. There's no guarantee that, let's say that this is, which I'm not saying that it is, obviously. Let's say that this is the best game ever made.
That is the idea, frankly.
Yeah, so let's say theoretically, Collision Gate is not the best card game ever made. It is the best game ever. Like, you play it and it makes you instantly, it cures your depression and your anxiety, and
it raises your kids.
Yeah, it raises your kids for you. If your kids are are having trouble in math, it teaches your kids math. It's that good of a game.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, like it makes French toast for you in the morning too, tucks you in at night. It's just great.
Hidden mechanics.
There's still a huge chance that no one will play it. You got to remember, toothpaste almost failed. Toothpaste almost failed.
That seems insane.
It's all about the people that were in charge of toothpaste. Like, they said, like, oh hey, we think toothpaste is a part of the daily habit of keeping your mouth clean and having an overall health and level of happiness and cleanliness. And it almost failed. Febreze almost failed.
Which seems insane.
Both seem insane. So if things that are such integral parts of our lives had a chance of failing, there's definitely a chance. Of course. Mm-hmm. But we're doing everything as good as we can, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. To kind of toot the company's own horn. For instance, the videos that we're releasing now that are more satirical in nature are going to lead us on a much steeper slope of advancement. Having the ability to make people laugh while also giving them the information that you want them to have is far more valuable than just telling someone, hey, this is what we're about, this is what we do. That was the whole point of every video up until this point. I've never acted in any of our videos. I've only been myself and how I was feeling in that moment. So that nervousness that you see in that first episode is real. I was so nervous. I was so worried that I could barely talk. And I was flabbergasted with the amount of support that we've received, despite it not being as comparable to other industries. But in comparison to similar ideas, a trading card game made by individuals without a AAA back or even a major game studio back,
right,
can be successful with the right set of tools. And cryptocurrency is just another one of those set of tools, and it's helping us out a lot. We haven't even begun to tap into our other lines of revenue and we've got enough money to fund the beginning of the project, get some people on board, and start moving us in the right direction. So once we have real production value, that's where our individuality as a company needs to come into play. Because we're not even the first cryptocurrency card game. And the first one was created by one of the creators of Magic the Gathering. So
Oof.
we have to compete on a completely different scale. We
Right.
can't rise up to that level. We can't rise up and be like, oh, we're this experienced. This is why you should believe in us. We have to do the opposite. We have to say, we're not experienced. That's why you can trust us to not do anything too crazy or to push things too far unless it's with the company's best interest, the game's best interest at heart.
Right.
And I think that's going to lead to the strongest team we could possibly have, as well as the most interpersonability amongst the people that we meet. Because us being raw and real is more valuable than us being professional. We can gain professionalism. We can't gain wearing our heart on our sleeve. We can't gain communicating efficiently and we can't gain communicating honestly and regularly. I was going to say consistently, but sometimes we're inconsistent. I don't want to get called out for being inconsistent, even though I am. But yeah, so if things are going to progress positively, we don't need someone to look at our game and be like, "This is the best game ever made." We need people to look at our game and say, "This is one of the most fun games I've experienced in the last few years." And a big chunk of that, when it comes to tabletop games or trading card games, is how it feels to look at and how it feels to play.
Right.
And personally, I barely look at Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic images anymore. I've been playing for a really long time, and I'm a lore person. I like
Shutting down.
reading. I like reading lore, and I love writing it. So I will sometimes go on a tangent for like an hour to 2 hours where I learn that a piece of media exists, consume all the information about it, and then I'm like, okay, this is how I would have wrote the show, or this show is written very well, or this is a problem that I have with the show. But I don't do that with Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh anymore. I definitely don't do that with Pokemon anymore, because it's just not worth it. And I don't think that's a bad thing on their end, but I do think it's something that they can improve, because I think everyone can kind of agree that Yu-Gi-Oh is not the best card game ever made. It is one of the most popular card games ever made. So if Yu-Gi-Oh continues to get more popular and it becomes more well adapted, what can Yu-Gi-Oh do to become the best game ever made? Well, there are small things that you can make better within your world that prop up the entirety of it. People will play video games for lore alone. People will play video games for mechanics alone. People will play video games for art alone. So bring your art to the level of people playing the game just for the art, the lore to the same level, and then make it as fun as possible. So I kind of did the opposite. I made the most fun game possible I could think of, that was also complicated and different from all the other ones that I could think of, while also appealing to the idea that every piece that I introduced to it after that would have to support the overall main idea, while also adhering to what the person who created that thing had envisioned. So the easiest way to do that has been just have you guys make something and then write a story around it. Or vice versa. Write a story around it and then have you guys make something that fits within that story. But that reminds me, we didn't even really get into the fact that you're also a writer for the team.
I am, yeah. So I've only just started writing for some of the lore. I proofread and I edit, and I go over the rule book. And yeah, I've been writing for I haven't written in a while. I haven't written like oh my gosh, I haven't written my like individual stories in a while. But as far as writing has gone, everything from uh lore for my own types of smaller projects to poetry to songwriting to short stories to scripts. I've done all of those. Um, and what script editing, done a little bit of that. And I've been doing that for about as long as I've been arting around. So it was definitely something, you know, I was like, I saw it and I was like, I could help with this because that, like, the idea of also helping build the world that my characters are being made in and are being created around and through and like being worn down by and living through, like, that excited me. So I'm very
And
happy
see
to be
that.
part of it.
See, when I hired you, that was one of the main reasons I did decide to hire you. Aside from you being a great artist, was when I was talking about the characters within our world. You treat them like people,
Yes.
like they are real people that exist, that are out there and are doing things, which tells me that you're a creative writer. Because I've explained how creative writing works to me to other people before, and somebody literally asked me, "Do you have DID? Do
Do
you
you
have
have what?
dissociative identity disorder?"
Oh my god. No, it's you have to do that. You have to do that. The thing is, you have to do that for your character. If you don't feel like, if your characters don't feel real, they might as well not have been made. If you
Exactly.
cannot
Yeah.
imagine talking to your character or meeting your character, you don't know what they would be like in certain instances, then you haven't made a character yet.
Nope. You've only made a collection of character traits,
Correct.
and a collection of character traits do not hold a story.
They
Again,
do
I
not.
mentioned people read stories, believe it or not, just for character arcs.
Yep.
For instance, I like Dragon Ball Z, not for the character arcs, except for Goku's until the Cell Saga.
It's true.
Goku's entire
And Piccolo. Let's not undersell Piccolo's amazing character design.
yeah, he actually had an amazing because let's not change it for long, but it was very well hinted at in Dragon Ball what was going to happen. Like
Right.
Toriyama's a discovery writer for those who don't know and that are fans of Dragon Ball Z. He doesn't know what he's doing when he sits down. He writes. I believe he was talking in an interview one time where he sits down for a day and he writes a bunch of points for the next arc. He does entire arcs at once, and that's it. So he'd be like, okay, Goku gets powerful here, and then he loses here, and then this thing happens, and then he takes that, he puts it on the wall, and then he turns away from it, and then he starts drawing.
Yep.
And that's how Toriyama works. Um, there's a hit and miss when it comes to discovery writing, and there's a hit and miss when it comes to fixed writing. Um, So, for instance, another really good recent example of fixed writing is Raised by Wolves. That show, yeah, that show is really good. Um, that show is getting compared to Lost a lot, and anyone who says that it's having the Lost effect is dumb because if you watch that show, every question that has been introduced to you in the first season has been answered. And I'm not saying like it's been hinted at, it has been objectively answered by a person on screen.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
now people are seeing that as the Lost effect, which I don't know how big a fan of you are of Lost. I'm a huge fan of Lost. Go Lost.
I wish I haven't. I unfortunately still need to watch Lost.
I didn't like it a lot as a kid because I didn't understand. But then one day I was talking to my dad about it because he used to like it a lot, and he's basically like, "Oh no, I like having a show where I don't even know what's going on." And I was like, okay. And he's like, and then at the very end of the show, everything is explained except for the stuff that's not, and that stuff's inconsequential. And I was like, what do you mean? And he brought up a certain. I don't want to spoil Lost for people that are in the middle of watching Lost. That's how seriously I take Lost. Watch Lost. Shit on it if you want to when you're done, but actually watch it. Don't just say it's bad because everybody else says it's bad. It is
Yeah.
bad, but it doesn't mean it's bad.
It's not bad, but it is bad.
Yeah, it's like Chronicle. Like Chronicle objectively is a very bad movie, but then if you realize that they're all really good actors,
Yeah.
except for that
It
guy,
carries the whole movie.
yeah, once you realize that they're all really good actors, it carries the entire movie because then you realize, wait a minute, they're teenagers. They would do stupid stuff like that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
And it carries the whole entire film. So
Correct.
any number of different things that we are trying to introduce into the game and put like a perfect stamp on can cause this to be an incredibly popular game. If we manage to get all of it done, which is probably impossible, but if we manage to get the things that matter to a card game, the card design, the playability, the fun, the artwork, the competitive nature, the responsiveness, we get all those things to work. It'll be pretty hard to deny that it's a good game. And if it's hard to deny that it's a good game, as someone who plays a lot of video games, or at least did until recently, I can tell you that if someone is constantly telling you that a game's good, even if you want to say no because someone's telling you that it's good, you'll eventually try it.
Correct.
Like, I'm not a fan of shooters, and I think the third person perspective is disgusting. But I've played Gears of War. It's Gears of War. It's amazing. Like I don't like third person perspective like at all. I think third person perspective is really bad unless it's for a reason. For instance, that's why I think Horizon Zero Dawn is one of the best games ever made because its perspective changes the way you experience the game. If you were playing from a first person perspective, you would be Aloy. But you're not. You're not Aloy. You're experiencing Aloy's story from an outsider's perspective.
Correct.
Just like The Witcher is another really great example, which I'm not as big a fan of The Witcher as I need to be to make this kind of distinction, but I am a big enough fan of game design to make this distinction. The first person perspective in The Witcher would make it a terrible game.
Yes.
Because
oh my gosh, it would.
There are so many things going on screen sometimes that you literally can't track it. And sometimes you need to be looking partially behind you and partially in front of you at the same time. And a Witcher should be able to do that. But if you had a first person perspective, you wouldn't.
That's true.
But then the final one, the most important one, is Halo. Halo could not be a third person. Halo would, and I've heard people argue, oh, it should have a third person mode. You don't understand game design.
It almost was.
It almost had a third person game mode. They changed their mind, and if you watch why, you will understand a lot more about game design. They didn't want you to be a person controlling Master Chief. They wanted you to be Master Chief.
Right.
That's why when you play those games on Legendary, it feels like you're at war. Like, genuinely, if you play Halo 2 Anniversary Edition on Legendary difficulty, no skulls, and you just play, you have a good time with the game, it will feel like you're genuinely fighting through the Covenant Horde to find the Flood and murder them. And by the time you're done, you feel accomplished like Master Chief, and you're cheering with him at every step of the way.
Right. Absolutely, I agree with that.
And that's something that we can do with this game. Like we don't want people to feel like the characters. That's the opposite of what we want. We want people to feel as though the characters are their own individuals that exist outside of their understanding. And
exactly, like they have their own lives and like these things. The card, the game that they're playing is something that is a product of them existing.
Exactly. And if something is part of this world, does it deserve to exist on its own? And how does the world respond to that? Earlier I mentioned Magic the Gathering and the color wheel, and then I kind of got distracted because we were talking about merging archetypes together. And I made the point that I did, but I actually had a bigger point. Magic the Gathering has something called guilds, which are two archetypes, or in this case, two colors merged together. And essentially, so it'd be like a knight riding a dragon,
Right.
for instance, or King Arthur wielding Masamune, maybe, or Onimusha wielding Excalibur, maybe, stuff like that. I want to do along the same lines because one, it generates a lot of content for us when we need to, and two, it's really cool to think like, what would happen if a dragon rider teamed up with a kitsune?
Yeah.
What's a dragon riding kitsune worshipping person look like? Do they shoot fire out of their hands or their mouth?
Everyone will have to wait and see.
Yeah, you have to wait and see, man. And then the reason I brought that up earlier is I was basically able to make that distinction because of you. Because originally I was going to use the samurai to do that. Like, oh, the samurai has worked with every single person. But then I realized, no, it just started there.
Yeah.
The samurai came in and showed people that things can be different and then made things different purely just by conquesting. And that inspired the idea of mixing all of the different archetypes together to form new and unique guilds, which we're going to call mercenaries. I think it'll offer a chance to produce quite a bit of content.
I was about to say, because I'm just thinking of how it's going to be interesting to see how people react to how we the depth of which we group, and we have both individuality, but we also have a lot of grouping.
Exactly. I agree. What we will actually be capable of is going to be pretty great. With all that said, though, we can get wrapped up soon.
Time.
Yeah, with all said, we can get wrapped up soon. So my closing statement, aside from saying goodbye, is that I know we ramble a lot on these podcasts. If you've made it to the end of this one, thank you once again.
Yeah, no, if you made it to the end of one of these, we're very impressed with you.
Yeah, we're very impressed. As we've said multiple times, the podcasts are for the super fans, the people that are interested in the project, as well as us, because you get a lot more of us, and you get a little bit more of the project. But anything that we talk about here on the podcast, you don't have to worry about if you miss a podcast that you're missing information forever. Sometimes you might be, but those are just secrets.
Right.
So just because something has been revealed, and just because something hasn't been revealed, doesn't mean that's the whole story. And Matt is
don't feel like anything is spoiled for you. Exactly.
And I hope you guys enjoy what we've created and what we're going to continue to create as it starts to come out and
Absolutely.
in the world for other people to experience. Do you have anything you'd like to add, Matt, before we take off?
Anything I'd like to add before I take off? Honestly, just thank you for having me, man, and I'm happy to be part of the team. So thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the interview. I appreciate it.
No,
it's always fun. It's always fun to talk about this. I mean, we'll of course ramble outside of this, but it's always fun to talk about this and to kind of recap where we are. So,
yeah,
I was not happy.
Go ahead.
Yes, go.
I was going to say, if we were worried about staying on topic, we'd edit the stuff that's off topic out. Yeah, this is more about the interpersonability. We don't gotta worry about the ramble. But with that being said, everyone, go ahead.
I was gonna say thanks again.
Oh, yeah. With that being said, everyone, talk to you later.